Yeah.
Speaking of that, there's a lot of drama happening in the WordPress community, even more than usual. Um, so the background, and this is not going to be completely exhaustive. I'll find a link that probably gives the latest updates, just because there's too much of it. So please don't at me for missing nuances. I'm trying to be fair here. So 2 weeks ago at WordCamp US, which is like the biggest, like WordPress community event, Matt Mullenweg, who is the CEO and founder of Automatic, which is like the largest kind of like official WordPress company. They're the people behind WordPress.com and Jetpack and WooCommerce and all that stuff. He's also the co-founder and the BDFL, Benevolent and Dictator for Life, of the WordPress project. He gave his closing speech at WordCamp US, and he spent it basically calling out kind of like vultures in the open source ecosystem, people who are takers and who are not giving back to the community. And the main target of his comments was the managed WordPress host, WP Engine. And WP Engine was acquired by a private equity firm, Silver Lake, in like 2018 for hundreds of millions of dollars. And apparently they make hundreds of millions of dollars a year. But according to Matt, based on whatever the notions of however you define contributions back to core, they donate only like 40 hours a week back to the open source project. So, they're making hundreds of millions of dollars. They're only, they're donating very little back. And so he kind of went scorched earth a little bit, calling them out, basically encouraging people to potentially like move away from them. Um, and according to Mullenweg, he said that he'd been having conversations for months with WP Engine trying to get some sort of trademark licensing deal, because I guess how they use the WordPress trademark on their website is potentially violating terms. I'm not a lawyer. I can't speak to that. And so he was wanting to, work out some sort of deal where either they contribute time towards core in the terms of like, employee hours, or a certain amount of their revenue gross to WordPress. And he calls them out. He gets kind of spicy in his words about it, and then WP Engine is not happy, and so they send a cease and desist, which only made things worse. And so the cease and desist was basically like, don't, keep my wife's name out of your mouth, and don't talk about this stuff. And so Mullenweg's response was then to block access to WordPress.org, which he personally owns and controls, from all WP Engine sites. What that effectively means is that those sites can't get updates to plugins or themes or security patches from the WordPress.org servers. And so after some backlash, because regular people, regular
Sure.
clients and agencies and people who manage sites for WP Engine are impacted by this, there was some, backtrack on that. And so they're like, okay, well, you can have access for like 4 more days so that you can build your own infrastructure to host, a copy of the plugin directory and theme directory and serve updates. So he did that. That's actually kind of shitty, because this is like a built-in mechanism into WordPress, and in my opinion, like, it's actually kind of a security issue, because WordPress it would be like if Debian said Ubuntu can't access apt. Is basically like kind of how I think about it,
Yeah.
right? And I'm not saying that the WP Engine shouldn't be contributing back more, because they absolutely should be, but I also feel like if this is a built-in part of the ecosystem, and this is how people get updates and how they get things, cutting people off, especially when you don't make it easy in core to come up with a replacement, is kind of a, not great move, at least for your end users, putting aside
Yeah.
whatever the merits are from the host itself. Okay, so he then continues to talk about this publicly, and Twitter Spaces, and on a couple of podcasts and YouTube channels and other things. And then WP Engine files a lawsuit against him personally, as well as Automatic and other things. And in the lawsuit, they start revealing some of their communications, which make it look like Matt was potentially trying to extort them for money, basically saying, if you don't give me this amount of money, then I'm going to go public with all this stuff. Again, I don't look, I'm not a lawyer. I don't think there are a lot of merits in this lawsuit, but it certainly, all it does is escalate things. The now the net effect is that there are a few plugins that WP Engine maintains, like Advanced Custom Fields, which is a very, very popular plugin that has
Mhm.
been banned from the WordPress plugin repository. So nobody can
Jesus.
get updates from it, which sucks because, again, built-in updates have been a feature for like 15 years now. 13 years. I'm not sure how long, but it's been a long time that you've been able to do automatic updates through the WordPress backend. And so individual users or individual site owners will have to figure out, going through to, download updates to, and the thing is, it's not just WP Engine customers who use this plugin. Like millions of people use this plugin because custom fields is not built into WordPress core. Maybe it fucking
Right.
should be. Anyway, so that's been blocked. And then Mullenweg gave his employees at Automatic, basically said, either you're aligned with me or not. And if you're aligned with me, game on. And if not, or if you have any other reason that you just want to bounce, I'll give you $30,000 or 6 months of salary, whatever's higher. And like 160 people left the company. So like 8.2% of the company left. And then there's all kinds of blocks happening on Twitter and other things. And it's just, I don't know. It's sad. I feel like it's
Yeah.
sad. I feel like there are really valid reasons. I feel like there are no heroes here. And the only real losers are like the end
End
users.
users.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because I don't know. I feel like we should be having a conversation about how much companies give back to open source, especially companies that profit tremendously off of it. And like
Yeah.
in WordPress, it's web hosts who usually are, frankly, pretty, like parasitic. But
Sure. Well, and
I,
you come from a company that has a great track record these days with open source.
yeah.
Oracle is one of the largest contributors to the Linux open source
Hmm.
code base. And like, yeah, that is if you're going to sell open source software for the millions and millions and billions of dollars that the US economy,
Hmm.
like big tech does, you absolutely it's not free to you. It shouldn't be free to you.
Agreed. Agreed. The hard thing is that like the license terms, you can't really require that anybody
Right.
give. And so the mechanism that the Matt is arguing is that they're violating the WordPress trademark. And I don't know, there may be some validity to that or not. I don't know. It's that lawyers can figure that out. I don't know. The disappointing thing to me is just how this whole thing has escalated because it's end users who frankly don't care about, like
Right.
billion
Well,
dollar companies fighting with one another. They want their software to work. And then now their software doesn't work or their plugins that they install, they don't even know that a new version is
yeah.
out and they can't do anything about it without going through, jumping through a bunch of hoops. And
Well, when you are the default like website framework for what percentage? Like 60% of the web?
it's 40%, but yeah, 43%.
40%,
Yeah.
40% of the
40%.
entire web
Jesus.
runs on your software, and they installed it because it was free and because it was actively maintained, and they didn't do anything wrong by choosing it. And when what amounts to personal, like an ego dispute, if you boil it down, like the drama behind it is affecting 40% of the web in ways that they did not choose to put their money behind a certain horse.
Right.
They chose free software that was actively maintained and was making money on its own merit and not through their money. And then to have the rug kind of pulled out from under you, like that's that you, Matt Mullenweg has a certain amount of responsibility to keep the web running at this point with a 40% share of the framework it runs on. That would be
Yeah.
like AWS having like a petty dispute and just like cutting off services. Yeah.
Which I mean, well, the irony there is that like AWS like has been like licenses have changed because of their refusal to give back to open source. But yeah, like I
Oh,
said, like
really?
oh yeah, like
Oh,
the
I
whole
didn't
reason
know about this.
yeah, the whole reason Elastic's license changed, and I think Mongo's and some other ones did too, is because basically AWS would just make a hosted version of their service, would contribute nothing back, or they would make changes which would be beneficial to them, but they would because it was hosted. The way the GPL works is that technically, if it's a service, then you don't have to give the
Oh, that's
contributions back.
shitty.
And
Wow.
oh, it's beyond shitty. Yeah, no. Amazon's open source track record, it's gotten better, but it's not great. Although even Elastic has made some changes with some of their sourcing in the years since then. But yeah, I mean, so but like I said, it would be kind of like to me the biggest thing was I'm like, look, if you want to, go after them for the trademark stuff, if you want to publicly, shame on the companies, I don't have a problem with that. Some of the community people I think are like overly invested in WP Engine, which feels weird to me. I'm like, they're not going to fuck you, bro. I mean, unless you're your employer, in which case, cool. But like otherwise, they're a host just like anybody else. Um, but like if you want to do that stuff, that's fine. But I feel like cutting off access to the update servers when you don't offer an easy mechanism for other people to do
Mhm.
those things, kicking popular plugins that are very important out from getting updates, like this is all stuff again and again, like you've designed your system in a way that you actively have been hostile to people who've been like, well, what if we didn't have this reliance on this wordpress.org system? And so that's where I have a problem with it. And then I think that just kind of the knee jerk like anti response to anybody in the community who expresses concerns, like I don't think it's a good look. And so, like I said,
Yeah.
I don't think there are any winners here at all. I don't think there are any heroes. I think that the losers are the community. But the real fear I have is like, and I've never really thought this before. It's like, are we going to have some kind of schism, right? Because I don't really think that you can have a viable WordPress fork. Like, I don't think that can really happen. I think that the money that would be required would be so much that people are like, oh, well, what if WP Engine just forked WordPress? And I'm like, well, they could, but the whole point of the dispute is that they are not giving money back. So, if you think that their response to this is going to be to invest hundreds of millions of dollars potentially into building and maintaining a fork, I'm sorry, but I think you're wrong. I don't think that they will do that, right? So potentially you have people moving on to other things or less secure things. Ghost came out of members of the WordPress community who didn't like its decision for various
Right.
reasons, but
Right.
it's not code based at all. And so I don't know what's going to happen, but it's certainly it's like not ending, and I keep hoping that like you know cooler heads will prevail and that it will not be as bad as this is. But I don't know.